And when it comes to the Lotus 49, this community loves to put the car on old school tracks. And Australia certainly makes them in that fashion. In fact, they took the term horsepower quite literally at this place. And you'll see what we mean as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is IMSA driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Sandown hosts today's event, and built around a horse racing track, let's take a closer look to see what makes this unusual circuit. Welcome to Sandown International Motor Raceway. Located on the east side of Melbourne, Australia, like many older racetracks, it started life as a horse racing circuit. But unlike the numerous ovals that emerged from that trend, this one wound up as a road course. At just over 3 kilometers, or slightly under 2 miles, the 13 turns don't make it look terribly complex. However, once you get into the cockpit, you get a clearer picture that it's anything but simple. Of the various chicanes and 90-degree corners dotting the course, the first turn is one of the more open ones. In fact, both the front and back straights lead into very tough places to overtake. Turn 6 at the end of the backstretch is the more notorious one, with it being scarily fast, blending directly into 7, 8, and 9, as well as offering very little runoff to the outside. Meanwhile, Turn 4 and Turn 12 stand out as two of the most critical corners on the track. Both leading onto long flat-out runs means ideally you'll need to focus on your corner exits to ensure a better lap time. While Australian supercars steal the limelight, the place has also seen a variety of types of racing, from sports cars to open-wheelers and, of course, motorcycles. In fact, the famous Lotus 49 saw victory lane here at the hands of Jim Clark in 1968 in a non-championship F1 race. Local noise restrictions may have limited it to only 5 race weekends a year, but it still offers thrills to the numerous race fans who show up each and every time. As you can see, a very interesting layout due to that horse track being on the inside, but as kind of simple as it looks, Joey, I feel like this is way trickier than that initial appearance.
It's specifically tricky going into a lot of these chicane break zones, but the overall flow of it, 13 turns, just under 2 miles, 1.928 miles to be exact. And yeah, Joe, it's going to be tricky leading into some of these break zones, but the key part is there's several of them to try to make a move being done here, and you got to be careful of the curbs, and then also putting the power down in these Lotus 49 machines. Getting off of those slow corners can be tricky in these cars.
It really can. Now, for the championship, right now, Jorge Nieva is actually still leading after the first 2 rounds. He's been quite consistent, even though he only took the first win, and that was his actual first win in the series. Now, Ove Trangrade's the one chasing him, but Xavier Sanchez has also been up there. He took the win last week out, 3 points between the top 3 right now, so it could all change around after today. We'll see what kind of day they all have. Marcos Salgado's been kind of around there, but he's a little ways back more. Then you get guys like Jason Clapper, who's really outperforming himself, considering he never qualifies and is up in 6th, only 2 points away from 5th even. But it's only the second round, so that's why you see things as close as they are. Let's take a glance at how the F2 drivers are.
It's pretty much a 3 to 5 point gap between each of the drivers 1st through 10th, but Steve Morris currently with the early charge. Bjorn Ackerman and Andrew Eng hot on his heels, though. You look through this F2 driver standings, and I really see a lot of familiar names back here. Jan Steffen, Terry Traumhauser, Kurt Clapper as well. We're just going to have to see who makes their way up. Those Clappers like starting at the back, but hey, look at these point standings. They're right in it.
Indeed. Now, they also have a Nations Cup, and, well, like I said last time, Spain has really been phenomenal this season with a lot of fast drivers up high in the points. So, of course, they're leading the way over Norway, which does have a couple drivers, but mainly known for Ove Trangrade contributing there. The UK and the US rounding out your top 4. Japan with Hisada trying to hold on to the back of that group there. in 5th. What about today's race? What are we up against here, Joey?
Well, round 3 of 12, 31 laps here at Sandown. As always in this Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, it is open setups, but go join the community. They love sharing the hot setups over there, get all of the competitors up to speed. No spare cars, so if you pick up any damage, you're going to have to live with it. And then the standard stuff, drive-through penalty at 17x, disqualification at 25. I think we're going to see plenty of cars, run wide through chicanes. I don't think 17X will be an issue. As always, Joe, it's always about tangling the wheels and avoiding the contact here.
Well, and as you can see, there's some very, very tall curbs as well. So I got to imagine if you do accidentally cut a chicane, you're probably going to pay for it with the car spinning around and finding itself facing the wrong way. As we're going to watch with one of the more popular paints, Timothy Porter, in his Netscape car, coming down the backstretch into one of the scarier turns here. Long, sweeping left-hander this turn.
It leads directly into this little chicane, left, right, left brake zone, 90 degrees, then put it hard on the power again. It's almost like you're having to dance the car on the front end going in and then dance it on the back end coming out.
Togo Hisada just took the pole away. Oh, but Kyle Ridley. And that is not a name I'm as familiar with. I'm not sure if we've even had him before. He is the quickest shortly, though, because Xavier Sanchez now goes even faster. And the margins are small. Top 3 are all not more than a tenth away from one another up there. So it looks like it's going to take the tiniest of mistakes to find yourself costing positions today.
I think Togo Hisada is one of the last of the front runners to be able to put down his second lap. You see him jumping over those tricky sections, use that curb on the right-hand side to really help turn the car and then blast your way down this straightaway that kind of curves left and right and then into one more little tricky chicane section.
Boy, it took a lot of that first curb, but it looks like it was fair. Let's see what it is as he crosses it. Short lap times around here, barely over a minute. A 104.9, the only driver to break the 105 mark so far, and that will put him back on pole by actually a much wider margin than the others did previously. Kurt Clapper, we don't expect him to actually set a lap time unless he's breaking tradition here, but he is coming out there as he's the last one able to do so. I only see Robert Plumley out there, but he is not on track. He's just sitting in pit lane. So I think he has abandoned his second lap. So let's see if Kurt actually breaks tradition and sets a time.
If I was to wager a bet here, I don't think he's going to. I think he's using this more as a warm-up session. And I know that here in iRacing, when you join into these official races, you don't always get a warm-up lap depending on your internet connection when you load in. Qualifying might be that only time.
Let's remember that it is the Australian winter, so these are some fast times. It's 66 Fahrenheit on the track surface. Very, very cool. Probably incredibly grippy, although they've got a little bit of wind here. And Kurt bringing it down the last little chicane. A lot more difficult than you would imagine, and it's more because you've got this acceleration zone, and then this curve isn't really a curve, that little kink in most cars, but here in the 49, I can tell you, Joey, there are a lot of curves that suddenly become actual curves.
And it's because this car makes no aerodynamic grip. It has no downforce levels, really, so to speak of, and it's all about the mechanical grip, the car setup. So you're right. When do you put the weight on the front end to help turn the car? When do you shift that weight to the back to help put the power down? It's all in the vehicle dynamics. It's all in the car setup. And in my opinion, that's what really makes a driver.
Let's see what makes Kurt Clapper here. He's got the number 20 on his car, so he is a little bit lower down on the iRating scale as he swings it down into 6. And then braking for the left-hander that comes afterwards. There is some runoff in the form of a gravel trap, but you really don't want to go too wide because it'll take a while to get back on. And then into the final chicane. And let's see, does he actually set a time, or is he going to... Well, nope, he is not. You're right. He is indeed going to park it. So we wondered, and there's our answer.
I love it. I say my bet is good on that one, Joe.
All right, so Togo Hisada with the fast time today over Xavier Sanchez, but these two seem to be at each other's throat this season. Kyle Ridley coming in and surprising us, putting it in third. Jorge Nieva is continuing the trend of his speed. He is in fourth as Ben Zocco will start from fifth. He's at his home track. Let's see what he can do. Steve Morris will start from sixth position, followed by Neil Kemp in P7. And then Gary Ho in eighth. Bjorn Ackerman starts ninth today, followed by David Rossi, rounding out your top 10.
Here in 11th, we have Yunsu Lee, and in 12th, Michael Grissinger. Row 7 is made up of Matthew Maudsley and Cam Porter. Andrew Mitty here in 15th, Derek Matthews 16th. Row 9 is Tomas Tuba and Jan Steffen. And 19th and 20th, we have Timothy Porter and Jonathan Jordan.
Jason Clapper, first one not to have qualified, starts from 21st, followed by Robert Plumley, 22nd. Then it's Jeff Saunders, P23, and Kurt Clapper in 24th. Andrew Ang will round out the 25 today. Somewhat of a smaller field, but as we saw, lap just over a minute in length. Even with these 25, I have to imagine, Joey, that the track is going to fill up quickly, and we're going to be seeing lap traffic coming soon.
I agree. I think look at the temperatures out there. Nice and cool on this morning. Not too much wind. That just means the drivers, they're going to be aggressive in the moves. The grip in the racetrack, it's going to be there. They're going to go for it.
Just waiting on a couple more to grid up here. Derek Matthews. And it looks like he is out there now. So it's down to Robert Plumley and Jeff Saunders to plop themselves onto the grid, and then we are good to go with all 25 ready and waiting here for round 3. Plumley giving it some time, and he did sit there parked. I wonder if he's going to... Nope, he is going to start from the grid. Okay, so it looks like we're ready to go as the engines now start to rev and the lights come up. 31 laps here today, and the green flag is out to start the first one. Sanchez not quite as good off the line as Togo Hisada. In fact, he might get past for second there if Ridley feels ambitious down into turn 1. No, he does not. We got almost 4 wide in the background coming into that first turn. But what about this first chicane? That is going to be the tricky bit.
I believe that was Robert Plumley sneaking up the inside. And Joe, you were right. We had 4 wide in turn 1. I believe Matthew Maudsley was involved in that, but everyone zippers out. Single file Hisada over Sanchez, our lead battle.
But for how long? Sanchez takes a big look up into turn 6, but no dice. He's going to have to back out of it. Behind them, Ridley is still there. Expect passing to be a little bit difficult today. We'll see who can manage it. Just not very many long straights here.
Gary Ho was just side by side with Neil Kemp, and I believe it was Gary Ho with that purple helmet that I miscalled. He was making his way up. He's aggressive on the brakes on this first lap.
That could pay dividends, especially if he's able to get close enough. But look at this. Speaking of which, Sanchez once again encroaching upon Togo Hisada. Looks like his gearing just much better as he keeps just out dragging him down to the corners, but can't seem to get him under braking.
That's an interesting point, and it is an open setup, so you can change the gear ratios in this thing. And yeah, I wonder if Sanchez is running a different stack than Hisada.
See if he does it again here. If it was just those first couple times, not gaining as much. So yeah, maybe it was just a trick of those first couple straightaways there. But still, your top 4 are not separated by much. Just a second from Hisada down to Nieva, who's been overtaken by Kyle Ridley there at the start.
Ridley doing a really good job. He's actually hot on the heels of Sanchez here in second place. And just on this lap alone, his lines, they look very comfortable on the racetrack. Uh-oh, Bjorn Ackerman, one of our F2 leaders.
This is coming out of, I believe that is 8, that he seems to have gotten turned around there. I wonder if he had any sort of help. Let's see on the replay. Looks like it was a bit of a spin on his own. Easy to do. That's a very difficult place to get the car wound up.
You got to jump over the curbs coming in, so you got to be worried about that. Not only that, but you're hard on the brakes trying to balance the car. It's so easy to lose the back end.
Neil Kemp, the latest victim, though, and that was, where was he doing that? I think that was turn 1, but he got that car turned around, unfortunately. So that sends him now to the back of the field. Still the same order at the top: Posada, Sanchez, Ridley, and Nieva, as we check in with Cam Porter, who typically does give us an onboard. Let's see if he's got his view for us today, as it's a bad exit with the car. Grissinger in front of him. There we see Cam's view as he runs through the gears on his H-pattern shifter. He's going to slam back up them as he accelerates off the final corner.
Always love these onboard shots, and I love also the realism that a lot of these drivers in the community do. You see Cam using the H-pattern shifter, so full realism, the clutch, all of it going on for him.
Wasn't quite close enough to Grissinger. He's also got a little bit of a threat from behind, and we can't see Hyun-Soo Lee. Sounds like Robert Plumley has had yet another off. I've seen him lose a couple positions earlier already. And, did he take Jonathan Jordan with him? Looks like he lost a position, but I'm not sure what for is. Ooh, here we go. Cam's got a nice run on Grissinger. He's got the inside into turn 6. As long as he gets the braking right, he's got it done, and indeed he does.
Really nice move from that number 17. He was in an awkward position on the inside of the racetrack, but completes the pass, and now Grissinger actually under attack from Lee.
We thought about it, but couldn't quite get there. Once again, a little off the apex for Grissinger. He is just all out of sorts, and he's not going to get a good run because of it. Lee's going to be able to at least pull side by side. Now he's got to finish it up. He's got a little bit of a nose ahead as they come up to the braking here into turn 1, and there it is. Hyun-Soo is up in the 9th.
Dances it through turn 1, and I actually think Hyun-Soo is one of the faster cars in this little group that we're watching here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him go up and start to apply the pressure on Cam Porter now that they're both free of Michael Grissinger.
This the vintage crowd loves their classic liveries, and our director pointed out something I hadn't noticed, that Lee has put the Mazda 787B paint scheme on the car. Oh, we've got a huge pileup. It's Thomas Tuba, Bjorn Ackerman, and I think Kirk Clapper. They were just in a literal pile there at the apex, and that caused all kinds of problems for cars trying to tiptoe around them.
Take a look at exactly where this happens. I believe this is in the turn 2, 3, 4 complex here. This is where you really got to be careful. Oh, looks like Tuba just up the inside. A little bit of damage here, but it's a funnel, Joe. Look, everybody parks it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no place to go there unless you're going way around the outside, and probably pretty blind as you come up, because there is a bit of a rise there. So, and almost causes more problems backing up to try and get going. Andrew Ang and Thomas Tupa, the only who have visited pit lane, make that Kirk Clapper the latest. But Ang is back out. Clapper, I imagine, going to come back in. As Timothy Porter here on your screen, currently running 19th. He's actually still where he started, and now he's spun the car out and having a bit of issues. So he's going to get it turned back around and be on his merry way.
Well, Joe, I tell you what, this lead battle, it is condensed back with this front four. You see Sanchez poking his nose down to the inside of Posada. He has been there the last few laps. He hasn't really mounted a charge yet, but I think Posada might be a little bit slower paced than the 3 cars behind him. I've seen Togo, though, pick up his pace at different moments of this race. I wonder if this is just one of those times.
That was a big slip of the rear tires there for Xavier Sanchez, and that's in a costly place, the longest straight on the track, coming down into turn 6. I thought he was going to lose another to Nieva, but it looks like the 2 Spaniards are going to remain as they were. And that moves Sanchez back down to 3rd. Ridley up into 2nd. What does he got? I'm going to check our stat sheet to see if he's done any starts in this series that I can find, because Kyle Ridley, I'm just trying to rack my brain if we've ever seen him before.
Well, I tell you what he's got the fastest car on the racetrack. I was mentioning him earlier, but I got cut off with some action. He actually looks to be one of the most comfortable in terms of the lines that he's taking. He's not really diving deep into these brake zones. He's very early on, and then he's able to put the power down coming out. He had one mistake earlier on lap 2 or 3 where he made a lockup, but ever since then, he has mounted a charge and been the fastest car and the most consistent.
I was not able to dig him up in our stat sheet, so this may be his first broadcast race in the 49. And for him to show up and be running at the front is a real testament to the speed that he does have. And he's got about a 5,500 I rating, the second highest in the entire field, as he takes a lot of curb there coming down through 7. Clearly can hold his own. But let's see how he does over the length of the entire race, because sometimes that is a different story.
When I look at a lot of the fast drivers in these vintage series between the 49, the 79, the Camel series, it always seems to be the drivers that are the most comfortable inside the car, the most comfortable with the yaw angle, the car moving around. And you look at this number 2 car, he's got plenty of I rating. His number board reflects it. And you just look at his style, he is very comfortable on the driving line. It doesn't seem like he's pushing the car much.
Yeah, it's a very planted style, looking extremely smooth, which is kind of what you want in this machine. And yeah, I mean, just minor corrections that I'm seeing out of him in some of the trickier corners here. So Kyle is on top of it. Now, Sanchez couldn't overtake Hisada. Does Ridley have something more up his sleeve? Not this time. He wasn't quite close enough there into turn 6.
I think he lifted out just a little bit early, wanted to keep that buffer zone, a little bit of visual room here, and just look at how much more apex curb he is able to take from, comparison to Togo Hisada and also Sanchez right behind him. I feel like it's allowing him maybe 1 or 2 more mile an hour through the middle of the corner as he deals with a huge snap oversteer.
Well, there's one of the first big mistakes we've seen out of him there, and even then he kept it out of the wall. Now, they're coming up to lap traffic, and it's only lap 10 now, so this has happened even quicker than I anticipated. Timothy Porter may have helped it along with some of his incidents, as he's the first to be lapped, at least on track, and he's going to pull out of the way, but unfortunately there's just no place to disappear there.
Good job. I know that he checked up the leaders a little bit. Here's Hisada now going defensive down the straightaway. I don't think Kyle Ridley's going to make a move in this area of the racetrack. I haven't seen him be too aggressive on the brakes, so I think it's going to be more about setting up the pass, maybe forcing our leader into a mistake.
Yeah, possibly. We'll see. It's a decent braking zone, but not as hard as what we'll see down into places like turn 1. So maybe he's waiting for the good setup here out of the final chicane. But once again, I saw that rear end squirm a little bit. So maybe that last little chicane is kind of the bugbear of that number 2 car.
And I mentioned that Togo might have had a slower pace a couple laps ago. Well, he could also be saving his tires a little bit, because if he's not squeezing those rears like we see Kyle Ridley, he might have more tire left when he needs it at the end.
I kind of wondered that too. The only thing that I'm not sure about is that it's such cool conditions. I wouldn't think the tires are as big of a concern here today. They're also approaching Jonathan Jordan very quickly, another driver that's had issues here today. So when are they going to catch that pink number 19?
I don't think that the temperatures, I agree with you, Joe, that the temperatures will help the tires in this situation. However, the nicer you treat your equipment, the better it's going to treat you at the end, no matter what.
True. Very true. So, well, let's see if it pays dividends come the end of the race, because we're only a third of the way through, and Jordan found a much nicer spot for him to be able to get out of the way of these top 4. Ridley looking a little bit vulnerable this time, as Sanchez is the one with a good run coming down the front stretch, down to the braking of turn 1, looking for it, and not quite close enough.
He put his nose down in there, though. Good bit of respect between Ridley and Sanchez to close the door and not have any contact. And now let's see who can get off of this corner that's so crucial. Rockets you down the back straightaway. I if you want to go up there and chase Toga Hisada, you got to get in line.
For 4, it looks like they struggle a little bit because they all spread out. Nobody getting closer along the back stretch as they break over the crest down into 6 once again and try to straighten out that entry into turn 8 as they accelerate away. Look at the way that Hisada just launched off of it that time. So maybe you're right. Maybe the tires are just doing a little bit better since he was kind to them early on. And yeah, now consistently he is out dragging Ridley in most of the slow corners.
And Joe, this is purely hypothetical over here. Now, if you have a car setup that helps turn the middle of the corner, i.e. Kyle Ridley, where you can close in on that apex speed, traditionally you don't have the power down coming off. So you might be a little bit faster going in and through the middle. However, when you need to squeeze down the throttle, you have to actually be a little bit more careful. Now, if you're Kyle Ridley and you like a car that drives like that, you can make it work, but every driver wants something different out of their car.
Exactly, and Sanchez won second place back, but he's not going to be able to snatch it up quite yet. He got awful close. This is kind of bearing to what I had said a little bit earlier, that the passing seems to be quite difficult. This train has been stuck like this since the very beginning, and they're running away from 5th place Ben Zocco. It's up to 4 seconds now.
Yeah, I think it's going to stay a train like this. I'm seeing Jason Clapper. He's already up 10 positions, knocking on the door of a top 10 right now, trying to get by Michael Grissinger. But that really is about the only other big pack that I see on the racetrack. Actually, here he is, Jason Clapper in the number 7, already taking a look down the inside of Michael Grissinger right in front of him.
It's David Rossi behind and Matthew Maudsley in with them as well. Oh, that was a very good run from Jason. And yeah, Michael's not going to fight it. He sees it coming. He just stays off to the side. And as long as Jason's good into the turn, although coming back at him, Michael very good on the brakes, but it's for naught as Jason does slip into the top 10.
Up into the top 10. Got a little bit of a ways up to old familiar Cam Porter in that number 17. But I think that Jason's pace, it can definitely climb him up there, but probably a few laps away.
Had a problem for Derek Matthews, and this was into the final chicane. He's waiting patiently to get back onto the track as that train of cars goes by. I think this was a pretty simple solo error. He's got a couple cars behind. But, yeah, rear starts to come around, and by the time he catches it, well, you're heading into the grass.
And then, yeah, some front right impact there for Matthews. I'd expect some suspension damage on his number 25 machine.
Yeah, he nosed into it pretty well, but, yeah, I think you're right that he may have gotten the corner there. Back to David Rossi. He's the latest to see if he can put one over on Grissinger, who we've seen getting past a couple times. No, he's not. Rossi gets turned around by Timothy Porter, who was a lapped car. That is not going to go down well.
It's a bummer for sure. You see him pointing the right way now, but man, you still got to cool yourself down, cool the tires down from being in that spin, especially when you knew it wasn't your fault.
I'm sure, yeah, Timothy's probably pretty embarrassed about that. He's a very good racer, I will say, usually very polite, especially if he's getting passed like that. So that was definitely an honest mistake. But if there's a pass here, it's not going to be a mistake because Sanchez this time took a little bit of a look on Ridley, but I think he backed off of it early.
I've been keeping an eye on this lead battle. The last lap, Hisada actually made a little bit of a mistake, but was able to gather it back up. Kyle Ridley had a mistake coming out of the final corner, really allowed Sanchez to close in. And Joe, I think that's been the weakest point of Kyle Ridley's entire track is that final chicane area, putting the power down. We saw that snap oversteer earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah, trying to get the car set up for that. And I do understand that the drivers, this was this way back when I was still racing the car as well, do a lot of work on the differential in this car to try and get it to their liking.
Speaking of that differential, more problems on the track. This is Jeff Saunders.
Missing some bodywork too.
Place. Oh yeah, certainly.
So how did he do this? Had to hit someone or something. Let's see what it was as they come down into the first corner. Whoa! Oh no, that was unfortunate there for Jeff because he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And Neil Kemp was the one that looks like he was kind of tipped into him. Or did he do the tipping there?
Yeah, I believe Neil, got into the back of the 12 of David Rossi, who got then into, I believe that was Jeff Saunders here. See, it can be tricky going into the brake zone. You have a little bit of a draft effect. You have to get on the brakes earlier than what you think, and combine that maybe with a competitor who's on the losing side of a battle, getting on the brakes early himself, just caught him off guard.
And we have to remember he's the second one that's done that. As we saw Timothy Porter do the same thing, getting to the back of someone accidentally. So yeah, it must be a little bit more difficult than we and they anticipated. Back to Ridley though, and this time looks a lot safer for him. I don't see Sanchez near enough to him.
Ebb and flow, ebb and flow. Just wait a couple laps. I'm sure it will change up a little bit. Will it be Ridley applying the pressure on Hesada, or will it be Sanchez continuing to try to get away that second place? And Joe, we were talking about the differential in these cars, and it is a big tuning point with these older cars. You don't have as many knobs and buttons to click on these things, so it's a lot of times these mechanical items, meaning the differential, you can tighten it up or you can open it. Basically, do you allow the car to roll more going into the corner freely, or do you tighten up that differential? So might have a little bit of understeer coming in, but it locks up nicely and puts the power down coming out.
Yeah, and a lot of what I've read, it is down to driver preference. And I know I tried fiddling with it some myself, but it's a bit beyond me to know exactly what I'm doing. Just kind of took advice and touched it a little bit and decided maybe it's better if I don't, as we see another close run down into the first turn once again. Is it just me, or is Nieva starting to lose touch, though?
Nieva has started to lose touch. I think couple that with catching some lap traffic at the wrong times, it hasn't helped his cause at all. But you as well as I know, all it takes is maybe a group of lapped cars and Nieva can be right back in it.
Hesada working on win number 9 if he can make this one happen. He's getting ever closer to passing Jim Shedlick on most wins ever in the series if he does so. And we haven't seen Jim as frequently, whereas Hesada has become a regular competitor out here. So he comes out of turn 8 down into the final chicane once again, dealing with some immense pressure there with Ridley behind. Oh, that got close between Sanchez and Ridley. That checks him up. He loses some ground. Ridley trying to carry the speed there onto the main straight. We're now 2/3 of the way through this race, so it's into the final stages. What does Ridley have for Togo?
I really feel like Kyle Ridley is faster on the back half of the racetrack. Here in this front section, he just doesn't quite have the speed. You see him kind of falling back off of Togo. Hesada, Sanchez really able to reel him back in, but now this is where I feel that Kyle Ridley kind of picks things up. Going into these awkward braking zones, he's really able to straighten the car out and take advantage of it.
Let's see if that bears fruit here. They come down through turn 6 as they weave back and forth, clattering over the curbs, trying to set up for 8. Yeah, much farther down to the apex there for Ridley, climbing over that inside curb. And Nieva now up to nearly 2 seconds behind. He is very much losing touch. He's got to hope that something happens and they start battling for him to try and regain some ground here, or else pick up the pace as the top 3 are starting to scamper away.
Looking at our second place runner, you could look at him jumping over the curbs one of 2 ways here, Joe. You could see him as a benefit, like, wow, look at how much ground he's able to make up through the middle of the corner. But you look at Hesada's style where it's low off the curbs, put the power down coming out. I tell you what, that's a tried and true method to keep a car behind you. Get the power down coming out.
Absolutely, and like you said, it seems to be working. He's just being very smooth on the throttle, It's very interesting seeing Hisada in this position, which we have before. Whoa, a big moment, and is he going to stay out of the others? He will. Ridley loses control of the car, and a wreck behind them as well. Nieva gets into Timothy Porter. For the second time this race, a lapping car has caused an accident, and oh my goodness.
Joe, I think maybe Nieva got into the back of Porter here as Grissinger, as we were already losing it in front of him. I think that Nieva maybe was just trying to shoot it down the inside a little bit.
Yeah, he wanted to get by. He didn't want to lose time, and just was unfortunate timing for him. Meanwhile, Kyle Ridley, as we lose sight there briefly with the cameras. Let's see what happens.
Too much curb.
Yeah. There's that downside you were just talking about.
Yep. Yeah, no, he just took too much curb coming in, and basically what happened is it upset the car, and from there was no saving it.
Now, he's back running, but I think he's got a fair bit of damage. I wonder if we could get some pictures on him. Yeah, I don't think it's tracking completely straight there, and Zoko's got it cut down to about 2.7 seconds. We'll see if he continues to catch him here in these last few laps, but this means it's down to 2. Hisada and Sanchez for the lead.
Yeah, watching him, I agree with you. I think that he's slightly broken. I don't think it's terrible, but you're right. He's not going to be setting any fast laps. He's not going to be able to defend it all. Ben Zoko only
we got to go to the lead.
Seconds.
Sorry, Sanchez is making a move. He's down to the inside of Hisada, and they're going to be side by side coming up into turns 2, 3, and 4. Who's going to be able to come away from this one? Both having to take the curbs, and neither car looking happy about it. But the inside of 4 goes to Sanchez. Does Hisada have enough of a slipstream to try and fight back?
I thought Hisada for sure was going to try to tuck underneath there, but just couldn't get the car turned in. Here he is, Sanchez going defensive, Hisada going around the outside, but there isn't much room here to go around.
Tries to cut back underneath him, and you're right, he just can't quite get it done. More lap traffic in front of them. Robert Plumley and Jan Steven now just up ahead. And is that for position? Yes, it is. So they're in their own little battle. They might not be as heads up.
Now, I'm going to make a comment on Sanchez's driving style because he spent a large chunk of time behind Kyle Ridley. The first half of this race, he was flat off the curb like Hisada. Now you watch him, it's a bit of a 50-50. Oh, and a little bit more lap traffic here. Gonna hold up Hisada. This is going to extend that gap.
Yeah, that's Plumley and Steven, and Plumley pulled off way before. You would have thought he'd be disadvantaged, but because Steven was offline, Plumley just snatched his position. So nicely done by Robert. His gentlemanly nature actually paid off that time.
What I was getting at, though, is that Sanchez took notes behind Ridley. He said, you know what, there is a benefit to jumping some of these curves, maybe stay off a few of them, but look at over here, over there, I can make up some time, and I think that's exactly what Sanchez is doing.
Clearly a very observant driver and very fast as well recently. Like I said, took the win last time, and he is going to add to his tally here pretty soon. I think becoming one of the few to have more than 3 wins, which is a very small group of drivers here. Let me double check on that.
As I say that, you know, Toga Hisada just reels it right back in, working about 6 or 7 laps to go here at Sandown, and I don't think this lead battle is over at all. We're going to be dealing with more lap traffic. Oh, Hisada with a big oversteer moment right there. Thankfully, it wasn't in an area of the racetrack that he's going to lose a ton of time.
You're talking about preserving your equipment, and it looks like it is winding up to be quite a big thing. We've been seeing more and more cars having issues trying to keep them pointed forward here late in the race.
I think that's always a talking point. And Hisada into the back of Sanchez, the same spot that we saw Kyle Ridley lose it in. I think Toga Hisada just got in too deep.
That sequence of corners is absolutely diabolical, and we're seeing graphic illustrations of it. Also, credit to Sanchez here. He gets quite a bit of a push, and he actually goes a little bit wide here, but he manages it so well. and just carries on like nothing happened as Hisada now has to make up a fair bit of time.
That has really separated out our lead. You see Xavier Sanchez basically a full turn ahead of his competitor Togo Hisada now with a handful of laps left. I think the only way Togo is going to catch him is maybe if Xavier runs into some lap traffic, but I don't see too much on the horizon.
Sanchez, a very popular streamer on iRacing. He goes by Heikki360, referencing a Finnish driver, interestingly enough, for a Spaniard, of Heikki Kovalainen. But like I said, about to become one of the few that is more than 3 wins. We have only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drivers ever in the history of Grand Prix Legends that have won more than 3 races, and Sanchez is about to become the 9th if he can just hold on.
He has the skill for it, but look who just popped in that purple fastest lap. Togo Hisada, 104.8. Compare that to Xavier, 105.4. My goodness, the race might not be over quite yet.
We've been adding new champions to this series for the past couple years. It used to be mostly dominated by Mick Claridge and Michel Dudignon, but Togo Hisada has shown himself to be quite fast. We've had 2 championships for Tixier. Could Sanchez be the latest to add his name to an even more elite list by becoming the latest champion? It's very early in the season, though. But right now, it's looking like he has his sights set on trying to become another of the crown as Togo Hisada comes through that final chicane. Let's see what this lap looks like in comparison. Sanchez has been running 105s, low 105s, and as he crosses the timing line, a 105.0, Hisada a 104.7, 3/10 quicker, but he's running out of time.
This is what competitors thrive off of right here. Togo Hisada, he's got the visor down, the bit between the teeth. He knows he needs nothing but qualifying laps.
No.
He drifts wide. That might do it for Togo.
He was pushing hard, and I got to give him credit. He was not letting it die no matter what. He was going to try and claw his way back, but maybe just pushed a little too hard. So Sanchez gets some extra breathing room now. All he has to do is bring this home to the finish.
I tell you what, the recovery drive, in my opinion, has been Kyle Ridley. Remember, he's got the damage back there. I thought for sure Ben Zocco was just going to eat up that gap and hunt down Kyle Ridley with that damaged car, but Kyle's been able to actually hold consistent lap times. Ben is still charging in, but he's been able to maintain it, might hang on to a podium.
I'm trying to see here again, and I still say it doesn't feel like it's quite tracking perfectly, but yeah, I guess he's managing it well, and you're right, he's looking at a potential podium despite being hard into the wall and facing the wrong way at one point. A real testament to the speed the leaders have been running.
I hope that we get to see more of Kyle Ridley. I see that here he's an Australian entry, so it might be a Sandown thing, but given his comfortable nature in these Lotus 49 cars, I would love to see a season with him in here.
Had another incident here, and this is Andrew Mitty coming down into 6 and 7, and once again, you start to lose the car. It's going to be hard to gather it back up, and he might have a later Lotus livery, but it does not have the grip of the 79.
Did a good job of saving it. That's been probably our biggest danger area on this racetrack, is that section of corners, and I mentioned it pre-race. It's all about that setup going into that tricky brake zone. Really easy to overcharge it.
It's 2 to go now at this phase, and yes, Hisada has cut it down yet again, 1.6 seconds. But Sanchez, I was going to say Sanchez just needs to be clean, but he was just straddling that curb coming off.
I I really feel like Sanchez is managing this, Joe. I feel like he's got more pace than what he's showing, but he's almost kind of like the carrot in front of Togo. Togo is going to use it to his advantage, lay down fast laps and continue to hunt it down, and I think Sanchez is just kind of letting him do so, knowing he's got another second and a half.
Don't need to go to it, but Steven had another spin. He falls down to 17th. He's among our many cars that have been lapped. We only have 14 of the 25 left on the lead lap at this stage. White flag is out for Xavier Sanchez. 1 to go. Hesada does have it back down to 1.2 seconds. He's still not given up on it, and I don't blame him. If he can get a mistake out of Xavier, he could still steal this win.
He definitely could. A mistake is going to be what it's going to take, but I think Xavier, as long as he's a little early on each brake zone, goes comfortably into each corner, he'll get the run coming out, which is exactly what he needs to do. Togo Hesada will continue to close it, but I don't think he's going to be close enough.
He's cut it down to 0.6 of a second. He's done this twice now, which is unbelievable the way he's this much faster. I kind of wonder why he wasn't able to shake them and get away earlier in the race. He's still getting really close to him. If he could out-drag him in one of these corners, he could still snatch this. But all, like you said, Sanchez has to do is just try and be good off the corner, and he should be clear, and it looks like he's got it. It's going to come down to less than a second, but Sanchez is going to take win number 2 this season here.
What a drive from Xavier Sanchez. Togo Hesada second place, and Kyle Ridley going to hang on to that podium in third.
Yeah, great run from Kyle. Ben Zocco with a 4th place. He's off the podium, but a home track top 5 for him. I'm sure he'll be very happy with that as Steve Morris finishes in the top 5 himself. How about Hyun-Soo Lee? Not a name that we've seen as much lately. He's up 4 positions, finished 7th. And one of our personal favorites, Jason Clapper, a gain of 13 today at a track like this.
Jason, always one of the biggest movers, was able to keep it clean out there. And personally, Ben Zocco's made a fan of me, and I love the burnouts every time.
Indeed, was the last of them trickle across the line. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Sandown for round 3 of the Grand Prix Legends Series. Xavier Sanchez gets his 4th ever win in the series and his 2nd win in this season. And that is going to likely boost him up to the top of the points. Togo Hisada was 2nd behind him and looked to be the fastest car today, but just couldn't keep it on the track. Kyle Ridley had the same issue as he fell down to 3rd, but had a fantastic recovery of his own after his incident, staying on the podium. Local boy Ben Zoko was 4th as Steve Morris got himself a top 5. Kerry Ho was 6th today. Hyun-Soo Lee finished P7. Jason Clapper, despite his lack of qualifying, managed to climb back up to 8th. Cam Porter was up to 9th, and Matthew Maudsley to 10th.
Here in 11th, Michael Grissinger, and then unfortunately David Rossi fell down to 12th, Neil Kemp down to 13th, Andrew Mitty into 14th, Robert Plumley comes away with a top 15 finish, Jeff Saunders in 16th, Jan Steffen in 17th, and then comes the cars that are one lap down or further. Got here, let's see, Jonathan Jordan, Derek Matthews also involved, and Andrew Eng in the top 20.
Yeah, from there, it's some drivers made it home. Bjorn Ackerman did there in 21st, but Nieva was a DNF. I think Timothy Porter may have been. He got involved in a couple accidents. Tuba managed to bring it home, but Kurt Clapper, sadly, was a DNF today. As it looks like we've got Togo Hisada with us, 2nd place finisher. Togo, we were just saying it looked like you were probably the fastest car today, but you didn't take home the win. Do you think you may have cost yourself a victory today?
Yes, pretty frustrating finish. Did a mistake twice on the same corner, and almost half spin out to the another corner. So yeah, setups and the pace is very good this week, but slipstream is a little bit stronger than I expected. So very difficult to run away from the 2nd place, and really frustrating. Yeah.
So that explains it. We were wondering why you weren't able to get away from everybody, and that surprises me as well. But what did you think, having come here now for the 2nd time in the Grand Prix Legends Series? It might be a difficult and simple-looking track, but for us, it felt like it put on a good show.
Actually, I haven't raced this place before, so this is the first time. And really enjoyable track, and some of the passing points here. So this is really great and fun. So really suit for the Lotus 49.
Now, you've came into this 3rd in the points. The 2nd place won't do you too much harm there. How do you feel facing off against guys like Xavier? Because Sanchez suddenly looks like he's a serious threat for you.
Yeah. So a little bit afraid, but the next week is the Zanford, another my favorite track. So I prepare under I hope to win next week.
All right. Well, we'll look out for you with that being one of your favorites. Congratulations on a podium.
Thank you.
And after Togo, it looks like we do have another newcomer that we were hoping we'd get to chat with. Joey has caught up with Kyle Ridley.
Well, Kyle, first of all, congratulations on the podium finish here, 3rd place at Sandown.
Thanks, guys. I think it's one of my third race in the car, and I was very strong today, and I made a little error, but I was very happy today.
I was going to ask you, what is your experience level here in these Lotus 49s? Because you are a new name for us, and I tell you what, you came in here and you stole the show.
Yeah, so I've done a few early last year, but because I am Australian myself, it just half the year it's on too late, and half the year it's on late, but not late enough. So came in, Aussie track, I thought I'll give it a go. Last season, me and a buddy tested it, and we were in the mid-5s, and I'm like, that's good pace, let's see what we can do, but we never ended up doing it. But this season I've done it, and I was on fire, and I was really happy. Almost got it though.
Well, covering this series now for a little bit, it's always the most comfortable guys in the race car that show up and steal away these victories. And Kyle, you looked very comfortable out there on the racetrack. Are we going to see you come to future events and maybe get up on top of the podium?
I love the car. Commitment is a bit of an issue in terms of times and whatnot, but if it's a track I feel comfortable at and I feel could potentially have another top 5 result, then you might see me. I don't know if I'll make it a habit, but you could see me.
Well, I loved the speed that I saw from you today. I definitely thought that you had what it takes to take home the checkered flag here. So I hope to see you in at least a few future rounds mixing it up out here. Before I let you go, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
I would just like to thank GSRC for the coverage. It does help the Lotus, the Lotus group. Really, I would have known about it otherwise. For example, gets the name out of there. But I would like to thank some of my sponsors, if that's okay.
Of course.
That's what I think. Ballring Motor Group, Race Labs Overlay, Dr. Epoxy, Next Level Racing, RSR Graphics, and Turn In Race Appel. And yeah, thanks for the coverage, guys.
Well, that was Kyle Ridley coming in, stealing away a podium finish here with a third.
It's revealing that he's got a number of sponsors. So, yeah, he's definitely a serious racer out there, as we've got one more to talk to before we're done. Top 10 today for Cam Porter, with not only a great start, avoiding some of the action, but making a few passes along the way. Cam, I think you could feel proud of this one.
I am very happy with this result. I was happy to get in the top 10 after qualifying 14th, I think. So really fun race today. A little quiet in the middle, but I had a great battle at the beginning. And then I saw Jason Clapper creeping up on me and my relative, and I thought, oh, he's going to catch me. And once he did, I was able to hold him off for a little bit, but I knew I wouldn't be able to hold him off for the rest of the race. And I made that one little mistake coming onto the back straight, spun up the tires a little bit, and that's what let him get by. But yeah, really fun race today and great result.
Yeah, you talked about him catching up to you and the overtake, but it looked like overtaking was still kind of at a premium, although Togo said he was a little surprised at the slipstream being as effective as it was. What's your feelings about the difficulty passing today?
There's a couple, obviously the straights are long enough on this track to get a good draft, but I think I was able to get out of the corners a little better normally until my mistake. But I think this track provides good passing opportunities actually if you can stay close enough onto the front and back straight. Entering the front and back straight and get a draft, you can make a move into turn one, or it's a little more difficult to get through that S side by side in the downhill. But I think this is a great track and really fun. Provides really great racing.
Yeah, it put on a good show for us today. What about next week at Zandvoort? I got to think you're probably going to be focusing on qualifying here coming up to that one.
Maybe. Qualifying is not necessarily my strong suit. I'll probably try to get in a race in the middle of the week to just get some practice in and make sure I have enough laps under my belt going into that race. So, looking forward to that one too.
We are as well. Thanks for coming and chatting with us. And again, excellent job for a top 10 today.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
That was Cam Porter in the number 17, which is going to wrap us up. So we want to give a big thank you to the community ourselves for bringing us back for another season of coverage of the Grand Prix Legends series. Also, thanks to the team today, Rob, Joey, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and our merchandise store. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. Next race, as we mentioned, Zandvoort, will be Saturday, July 8th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And be sure to check out our other broadcasts we have listed here, because up next this afternoon, Camel GT is also going to be here in Australia at Phillip Island, 1 p.m. Eastern. Make sure and stay safe this July 4th weekend. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.